Okay, so what you're looking at here is ancient ruins, an aerial view, and the reason I have that up there is I think it helps if you kind of look at these um, different ones from structures that were built on Earth, obviously, to determine possibly what structures on another planet or somewhere else on Earth, would be. I mean, archaeologists now fly over areas looking for structures and symmetry to try to sort out where ancient buildings may have been. And so it's kind of the same thing if you're looking at Mars or the moon and you're looking for evidence of some sort of intelligent life building there. I mean, now that it's pretty widely accepted that life uh, does exist all throughout the universe, the only real question for a lot of scientists is whether or not it could be intelligent. And I think every day more and more converting to the religion and understanding that a lot of faiths and speculators about life being on every crevice on the planet Earth would have to be in every crevice on pretty much every planet, especially now that it's even known that life can exist and be non-carbon based. But anyway, so you kind of look at things like this, and I think that helps to determine what to try to look for in Moon or Mars photos. So I look for the symmetry of the structure, rectangles. I look for triangles, look for squares, just straight lines for wall structures. It doesn't have to be a building with four walls. It could be a building with two walls. It could be a building with one wall. In low gravity environments, we really don't know what the buildings, the structures would look like. We can only look from an Earth's perspective, knowing the forces of gravity and it requiring us and our heavy building materials to use four walls. On Mars, they may use no walls. They may have used just a pole in the middle and just a lightweight building material that, grew on a plant on Mars 10 billion years ago that doesn't grow here. But anyway, so all that into consideration. So there's also water and a beach. The majority of civilization on planet Earth, like probably any planet, if it's carbon based, is going to be close to water. So riverbeds is what I look for. So I found some interesting things in PIA 17709. Like this photo, there's lots of stuff in there. So I'm only going to grab a few things and let some of you guys who've been doing this much longer or better at it sort out what else may be in there. But the first thing that stood out to me, I call primary. So what attracted my attention to this photo in a particular area is this right here. So let me zoom down in. So it looks like we found another tower, some sort of a tower shape. Um, get back to it. Um, what I like to look for is I like to look for um, shadows, things that help me determine, that something is tall and actually standing off the surface. The problem with it is sometimes it can be something laying down on the surface and kind of a trick of light and shadow. And so I'm just trying to look around it to determine that that is not the case, or it still may be the case. But then again, we have to do what we have to do. What's pretty much confirmed now is that we aren't being told the truth, and we haven't been told the truth because of the Brookings report. Um, Kicked off this age of don't tell the people because they'll all commit mass suicide and their religions don't accept it. Now most religions do accept it, and I think the archbishop came out and said that if aliens exist, they're our brethren. They've obviously made strides to prepare the people for this and all the alien, TV shows and movies. However, it's taken on a different twist now. Now it's about energy, So why are there wars all over the planet? I think pretty much everyone knows it's all about just killing people for oil. People who live over oil are just in a really dangerous place. But it's the same thing. So, that industry is extremely powerful. They buy legislation and they buy secrecy. They bought away technology. There's documented facts from, federal acts of hiding away through the patent office uh, photo uh, photovoltaic cells that were over 20% efficiency, as well as any fuel efficient cars. And so, why in the world would they release any sort of magneto drive or free energy type um, energy power generation that they find on a crashed alien craft. So anyway, so primarily this is what I'm looking for. I see this tower standing up. I kind of think that there are all types of air shafts that would still be existed on Mars. Life comes to an end on Earth. We'll fight for life, and we'll basically, if our atmosphere starts to fall apart, asteroids hit, zombie apocalypse comes. We're gonna we're gonna go underground. We're gonna go into bunker. I mean, our government spends billions to build bunkers now, so I assume that's what Martians or anyone else would do if life on the surface, which is always um, uh, very fragile, would do is go hide underground. So I look for these tower structures, air vents, things like that. So the first thing that jumps out at me is that. So I'm gonna start to look for some secondary imagery, things around here that might indicate that's just not a random structure, but it actually is surrounded by other things that are non-natural. So what stands out to me first here in the green lines is it looks like a path. So if you follow the pathway, seems like it kind of comes down here, goes back up here, and if I zoom out, let me put that path back again. If I zoom out, it kind of resembles what you would see in a Mayan complex, where on one side they have a whole bunch of structures and a small skinny path, and opens up again on the other side with a whole bunch of other structures. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it definitely meets the qualification, it seems, of a riverbed. So over here, it appears that we do have um, uh, lower terrain going down into some sort of a riverbed. And within that riverbed, there are actually some interesting structures down in here too. A lot of lines and different symmetry that might indicate old wrecked ships, old harbor, old piers, something of that nature. Once again, life choosing to live next to the water, or intelligent life choosing to live next to the water. And actually, I think unintelligent life, for the most part, does it too. But anyhow, so taking a deeper look into what structures exist around here, um, seems like there are a couple interesting features secondarily that would help, that primary tower structure to seem like it might be something over here, is all this symmetry. So you have a lot of lines that look like old fallen walls, like in that ancient structure, a lot of symmetry, um, as well as this little interesting building or wall, courtyard structure, whatever down here. It actually was hit by an asteroid in this corner over here. So giving some sort of indicator perhaps as to how old some of this might be. As you have, the tattered wall that's being covered by um, sand as it builds up on the sides of it. You can still see the square shape, but you have this crater right here which appeared to hit the corner, and it looks like it would have hit after this structure was already decaying and falling apart. So possibly something there, kind of interesting. Uh, Maybe you have a little interesting shape actually up here, which can't really make out what that might be. And then going down further to the bottom, you have the same sort of symmetry. You've got some squares, and I haven't boxed out all of them, but if you can, I blink that on and off, maybe you can see some of the symmetry there. You even have another line here, some other interesting shapes down there. So perhaps that's the case. I kind of like this photo. I think there's a lot there. I think you could probably spend a lot of time sort stuff out. There's all types of stuff still down over here in this corner. I won't even get into. Um, and so, yes, and then I come across I'll call a third, I don't think third area is a word, so I won't even go there, but a third structure, which it was interesting to me. I'm from the planet Earth, and I watch movies, and, there's a structure here that just jumped out at me, and it's right here. So if you can imagine, here's a big crater here on Mars, and here's the back of something that crash landed and was buried. I think if you look closely right here on the top, you could see the rubble right here of it being injected underground. So put the lines back on there. To me, what this actually looks like, for fun, I don't think it actually is, but it was interesting to me, is looks like in the back here you've got, here your engines. There's some sort of a tower on the top, and then it's a long cylindrical shape that just basically dove in underground, and then all this rubble falls back down over the top of it. Over here some soil sediment perhaps gets pushed up, and eroded over time, but some of it still that were rock is still protruding outside of the underground portions of it. Um, and what that brings to mind, it brings to mind an Imperial cruiser. So for those of you who watch Star Wars, um, I kind of see an Imperial cruiser in this tower here in a long, not triangle, but a cylinder-like shape. And so, of course, in Star Wars, you've got the Imperial cruisers that kind of look like this, with this long tower, this big tower on top. Of course, that came from shipping and being able to have some sort of a tower, the captain's tower, or what's it called? The at the top of the mast, they had the forgot it was a something hole where they would stand up at the top so they could see far and around. You have a better line of sight, and so maybe perhaps, but not triangle shaped, but more cylindrical shaped. So that brings to mind Rutledge, William Rutledge, and his possibly getting caught and faking some photos. So he basically ran across this photo on the moon here, which was a cigar-shaped ship or something that was sticking out of a crater. And he later, I think, got caught photoshopping some pictures. And in every lie there is a bit of truth. And what I think that might be the case here is, uh, in his lie, this initial finding was true and significant and mysterious, and he probably just expanded upon it after the naysayers started attacking. But anyway, what I see, I think the naysayers, what they say is that this is kind of a ridge and this is a shadow back behind it of the ridge, just a pile of rocks, nothing interesting. I think that's partially true. I think this is a shadow. I don't think that's the true crater line. I think that's the shadow of whatever this structure is. But I think this truly is a crater, because if you look down here in the front, you can see the dark, the deep dark of a chasm, or what you would think would be a shadow overhang going around the ship or the structure, whatever it is. And then it does seem to eject outside of this crater, and then the crater might look, something smaller, but then you have this shadow. But I still think this is some sort of interesting structure that comes out. It's about, I think they said it was something like 2 miles long, or it's really, really large. And to me, that's interesting, mainly because you have all these people who've come forward who've seen cigarette-shaped cigars. Everything from military pilots um, who've chased them and couldn't catch up to something that's 2 miles long, flying faster than a fighter jet, to just regular airline pilots have seen them. If you go out to disclosureproject.org, you have those credible sources that are willing to testify in front of Congress under the threat of being thrown in prison for the rest of their lives. It's a federal offense to lie in front of Congress. That they've seen these shapes, they've flown around these shapes, and these shapes do appear, disappear, and fly extremely fast in our orbit. And so yeah, so perhaps it's that Death Star with that shape. There are videos all over YouTube, so you can kind of take a peek around, and they've got the different cigar shaped. I think this one was down in South America, Mexico, where they see them all the time. They see smaller shapes come out of them. They call them motherships. And so, anyway, that's kind of what that looks like to me. Thought that was pretty interesting. Thought I'd share. Maybe that crash 900 billion years ago and 50 billion years ago, and a civilization spotted it, and they built a little. There's a square, looks like building up here, and maybe they built that and they started researching what was happening with that ship, pulling technology out of it, perhaps like we do, because that's the first thing you would do. I mean, you go and investigate the technology when you find a new land. I mean, that's where guns and cannons came from, was from China. We went to China, realized, wow, you've got something cool. How can we use it to kill a whole bunch of people?